All right, we're playing with the wireless mic today, and it's kind of windy, so I'm trying to get myself in a position where I've got my back to the wind. Hopefully that'll work out okay. It is just a gorgeous day here, middle of November. Wearing shorts, t-shirt. It's awesome. And I'm like, I've been spending the last few days stuck inside on the computer, typing, writing the next book. And I'm like, you know what? I need to get out and shoot some video just of something. So I come up with an idea, made notes even, right? So basically I'm thinking, I've been out here for 3 years or something like that. I kind of lose track of time anymore. But there are a lot of things that have worked and a lot of things that have not worked. And you know, you got lessons that you learn as you go, all right? And sometimes the things that don't work lead you to the things that do work, or at least you learn something from the process, right? And the last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is just time. It is so slow sometimes. You're like, oh, I just want something to work, and I want it to work now. And some things just don't work that way. So for myself, it's been an interesting process of just accepting the fact that it's going to take a while, right? So by waiting, you have time to think of better options maybe. This will be kind of a walk around video again, and we'll show some things that did work and some things that didn't work, and then lessons learned. And I'm kind of wrapping up the year, and we're in the process also of changing the format a little bit. So this will be kind of where things are at the end of 2020. All right, so let's go just look around for a little bit. Okay, first thing you'll see is the windbreak and the clothesline. Now you can hear how much wind noise is on the microphone probably. So if I stand out here, right? But if I turn my back, or if I get behind the windbreak, much quieter. There have been a lot of times where I've shot something out here and I would move to one side of the windbreak or the other just to get out of the wind. It is just makes a huge difference. I do have the fuzz on the microphone. That does help a little bit, but if you can just not be in the wind, much better. A lot of people have commented that, yeah, I'm not painting the OSB. It's, going to fall apart. It's going to be a waste of money. Sure, granted. I have some painted OSB out here that doesn't look much better. Really, OSB isn't meant for using outside unprotected, right? But it was cheap. When I bought this, it was about $10 a sheet. The windbreak has been out here for 3 years, I guess now. I don't remember exactly when I built it. I built it after I put the bus up here. The bus used to be down below. It's a slight downhill here. That area where the bus used to be flooded. Yeah, oops. So the way I looked at this, paint is expensive, right? Yes, OSB is expensive, but this will probably last me about 5-6 years at this rate before it completely falls apart. So in the meantime, it's working. When it falls apart, I'll either replace it or by then I'll have a better idea. So I don't worry about it, right? It's not as bad here as it is other places because it doesn't get rained on very much. Now the sun is just killing everything out here. So sun is more of a problem than the rain. All right, I'll get you a close up so you can kind of see what's going on. Yeah, places like here, it's all peeling back. But, this stuff starts off almost 1/2 inch thick, 7/16. It's got a long ways to go before it completely fails, all right? So I'm not going to worry about it for right now. Yeah, if you were worried about what your neighbors were going to say, yeah, you probably wouldn't build it out of OSB in the first place. Get something like a nice, like a cedar fence would be perfect, or redwood or something like that. But this works, all right? Keeps me out of the wind. This is what I called the redneck hot tub. It's, 350 gallons, I think, or something like that. It is enough room to sit down in. It's pretty big, right? Now, I don't use it for a hot tub, although there's been times I was thinking about that. In the future, I might do that. It would be really nice to just have it full of water, let the sun warm it up, you know, in the summer. Thing is, summer is not when you need a hot tub. Winter, it would be too hard to keep it warm. We'll work on that. Maybe I'll build an igloo or something over it. That would be kind of cool, actually. This pipe here, this is part of my rainwater system. What I thought of was, if my trash cans get too full, like if we get a good 3-day rain, which hasn't happened yet, eventually the trash cans will fill up. I won't have time to run around, run the pumps, pump them back to the main tank. So I would have about 100 gallons, you think. Maybe 150 gallons if all the trash cans were full. It would be right around 150 or so. This holds 350, I think. Okay, so the idea was I set up an overflow on the trash cans so that if they did start to overflow, water would come down to here. Now that wouldn't be perfect, but at least I wouldn't lose it. And then after, I could turn around and pump it back to the main tank. This is downhill from the trash cans. All right, cool. All right, moving on. Get up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go with this, and then if I have to redo the voiceover, we'll do it. Slightly visible in that shot, you can see the school bus. That has been one of those things that really worked out well for me. In the beginning, that's all I had. That's what I lived in. It was watertight, mostly. A couple little leaks. It got me off the ground. It was reasonably secure as far as, you know, you could be inside and not feel like you were stuck outside. Enough room to live in. It worked out really well. And since it was a functioning bus when I bought it, I was able to drive it out here, right? Now, the other option would have been to go buy something like a trailer, like an RV trailer. The bus is really made very, very strong. You can walk all over the roof and not worry about it. You could park it upside down on its roof and not worry about it. I don't recommend that, but they're made to roll over, right? Super strong. I paid $4,000 for it. Maybe I could have got a better deal, but the people I bought it from were willing to work with me on payments and stuff, so that worked out really well. And it ran. A $4,000 RV trailer would have been just a nightmare. I used to work on RVs, so for the money, you couldn't beat it. It's more money than I needed to spend, but I think I got really good value for it. Since building the house, I haven't spent very much time in the bus, except for this week I started again. I'm using it for a little bit of a workspace. I've got my washer, my laundry washing machine in there, and some storage. But I've set up one of my computers in the bus again because I just loved sitting in the front seat looking out the windshield. So earlier I had set it up where I took out the steering wheel, put a little desk in the front, and have a place that I can sit on the driver's seat and look out the windshield. And it's a perfect place to just sit. You can watch the birds, you can actually get some writing done. It's so much brighter in there because I didn't put a lot of money into the house for the windows. But part of that was because I had the bus. So knowing I already had the bus meant that I could take some compromises on the house. Why duplicate it? Okay. The shop, the white thing here, that, I'm going to back up just a little bit to get out of the wind. That should be better. I built that just before the house. It was part of the house project, basically. I needed someplace to store things until I got the house built. And so really on a whim, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to build this really quick. I'm going to put it right next to the bus. And it's really worked out good. It gives me, I don't have doors on it yet, so it's not secure storage, but it's a place to put things to get them out of the sun. All the bicycles are in there. I think eventually the motorcycle I'm going to put into there just to keep the sun off of it. I keep talking about the sun, but the sun is just killing all the plastics on the motorcycle. They're just oxidizing, and eventually they're all going to fall apart. So it's hard on everything, tires and plastics and wood and everything. So it's got the galvanized roof. I didn't do a good enough job on building that, so it does leak in a few spots. So I can't put things in there that I absolutely have to keep dry. I probably could go back and seal it, but for a quick storage area, it's worked out really well. I have done a couple projects where I stood inside and took advantage of the shade. It's open on both ends in the front, so the doors and everything. So you get really good wind breeze going through there. I would say it's not what's the word? I haven't used it to its potential yet, but now that it's built, I can come back to it in a couple of years even and get some good use out of it. So good storage place for stuff. The bus I'm still using for storage, and I'm actually thinking about going back now and doing the bus conversion that I always wanted to do, insulation and that kind of thing. We've talked about Turtle in the past a lot. So here's Turtle parked inside. I'm getting a lot of wind, sorry. So the Turtle trike, quad I should say, it's nearly functional now. The problem is I'm running out of time and money at the same time, and I'm like, well, okay, stop on that, get some other projects finished, and then come back to it. And time is another factor that I talk about quite a bit, actually. Let me see if I can duck the wind here a little bit. I don't think anybody will attack me in here. I'll just do this. I don't know how dark that's going to be, but if I sit forward a little bit, you'll know I'm here anyway, and I'm out of the wind, so that helps. Getting to this point on Turtle, I had to take a few shortcuts on the process. A lot of it was, I mean, it's all experimental, okay? And I think the way I was looking at it is I needed to get it on its wheels and hook up the motor and hook up the batteries and then learn from the process from that. And there really wasn't an easy way to get to that step. So that I liked. I mean, there was a couple options I could have done, but so getting it to this point, now I've got a rolling prototype that I can test things on. I did a couple test rides on it. The motor is working really well. The batteries I had were not enough capacity, but they were working well. I can't go very far on it. But I started really seeing issues with wheels, tires. I don't have any brakes, axles, things are bending, that kind of thing. So even though I've got probably 6 months into it now, there was just a few things that I'm like, okay, the whole purpose of this was so I could ride to town to check my mail once a week. And because of the compromises I was making, it really didn't seem like a good idea to take this one 15 miles from home and have it break down on me. So rather than going through that, I thought, well, let me just stop, let it sit, let things catch up, and then make better decisions for the next version. A lot of what I've done I can use. So what I'm thinking is probably motorcycle tires instead of bicycle tires. I can handle the weight. I think that'll be fine. And it's just a matter of they'll be stronger. I'll be able to rig brakes a lot easier. I should be able to do disc brakes on it. And we'll be better off for the next phase of getting it all put together, I guess. So that's kind of where Turtle is. If I had the money, I could probably put $1,000 into it pretty easily. That seems like a lot for a bicycle. However, quads that would do what I want to do can cost $5,000 and up. And so I think it's reasonable for what I'm looking at. And it's not just a bicycle. That's, the way I'm going to look at it is it's a lot more, and it's what I need. It's not what everybody else needs. So, I understand everybody's like, oh, why didn't you just go get an electric bike kit for the bike? Yeah, I could have done that. I could have had that working 6 months ago, 7 months ago. That wasn't the direction I wanted to go. All right. It would have been faster. In fact, thinking about it, if in May, when I ordered the motor, if I would have also ordered a motor for a regular electric bike, because you can buy the front wheel that's got the motor built in, you just put it on your bicycle, that probably would have been a good idea at the same time, because then I could have used the batteries I have now with that motor, and I could have had 6 months of use of going to town and back. That would have really been a good idea. So, but 6 months later, now we're thinking about it like that. Cool. Anyway, so that's it for the shop. Good place to store stuff. Like I've got a couple bags of concrete sitting in here and that kind of thing. That just gets them out of the rain. All right. Things that have worked. I talked about the trash cans. This is what catches water out of the rain gutters. Most of my neighbors, watching a neighbor drive by, most people out here do not catch rainwater because it doesn't rain very often. We only get maybe 10 inches of rain a year. But when it comes, why not catch it, right? So I canceled my water account months ago before I sold the truck. So since then, I've been running off of the big tanks that were filled up with water. Well, first it was filled from town water, and then I have been adding water as it did rain. And that's worked out really well so far. Now I'm getting down, but I still have about 300 gallons of water left, so I can stretch that out quite a while. All right, let's walk around. Oh, these workbenches. You see them in a lot of shots. They work out really well. And the funny thing is, these two, this is 2 workbenches here, they were the afterthought. The day I built them, I had built this one first, put a lot of time into it, getting it all braced up and everything. And so it's 8 feet long, 2 feet wide, so I had that left over. And I was looking at it and I'm like, well, I could knock off a couple more. I don't know if I'll use them or anything, but I'll go ahead and make a couple extras, So that was the leftover top from this one. A couple sticks on there, a couple 2x4s. Kept it pretty simple. I've made a few improvements to it, like the bottom bracing, because the legs would wobble really bad. But a lot of times I stand on those. Now they've been out in the sun for quite a while, so they're getting more and more sketchy. Eventually I'll put new tops on them, but in the meantime, right? I used them a couple days ago again. I use them all the time. And this one, the big one, is where I put the chop saw when I'm working with metal, cutting the metal off. And right now it's full of scraps, so I haven't had as much room on it because I keep using it for scraps. Anyway, let's see what else we can do here. I show this about 2 or 3 times a year. Still nothing has happened. The idea was this was where I wanted to build domes, geodesic domes. And I had marked it all out. I had originally going to do, I can't remember if they were 10 feet or 8 foot radius circles. So I had 6 circles around a central point. And the idea was I was going to build one dome at a time, get one finished, I'd have a room, like a bedroom, and then later on I could build another dome, and so this was before the house. So my thought was if I had a dome to live in, that would take me out of the bus basically, so I could then leave the bus for storage, build one, and then build the next one, and so on. And then at one point I decided I was going to build a hole. And I got the idea I was going to dig this hole. This was going to be for water storage. It needs a liner still. I was originally going to do concrete. I have a little bit of experimenting with that on a smaller hole, and I think it would work. Probably do reinforced concrete for the bottom and then try stuccoing against the side or something like that. Yeah, this wind is going to be a problem. But by the time I got done digging it, I never really got back to it. So it's still there. Obviously, next year I'll have time. Maybe I'll come back. A better solution, though, I think, especially for temporary, in the summer, you can buy an above-ground swimming pool kit. Just find one that would match the size of this, a couple $100, and you'd be done. That'll hold about 3,000 gallons as it is now. That'd be a good place to put some extra rainwater. Good. All right. Oh yeah, and all of these piles of dirt, that was what came out of the hole. If I can keep my back to the wind, this might work. Okay, this is kind of an eyesore, but this is all of the seats that were in the school bus, minus the padding. What happened was, when I first brought the bus out, it was parked over yonder a little bit. It's a little bit of a low spot. It didn't really seem obvious at the time. It rained a lot that year. All of the seats got wet. They were underneath the school bus. Oh, okay. I'm hearing something moving over here. So I ended up having to throw all the padding away because they were just awful, right? So by the time they got wet, you know, then they just got all mildewed and everything. It was just a mess. So I spent a few days in some pretty gross conditions peeling them all apart. All this water and gunk was running everywhere. And I saved the metal. The metal is what I used for the frame of Turtle and also some of the projects. And so I've still got a few left over. So it's, you know, free metal is never free because you have to spend time cleaning it up. It's rusty. It's been out in the weather for a couple of years now, but it's still free. So, yeah. So this is kind of my metal recycling area. If I can use a part, I will. Maybe eventually I'll haul some of the parts away. All right. If it's in the shot, the black, that's the bed liner out of my pickup before I sold it. Yeah, anybody that hasn't watched for a while, I sold the truck earlier this year, so I don't have a truck. I had taken that out one day because it was pissing me off, and then I forgot to put it back in when I sold the truck. You know, sorry. But I keep looking at it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but it's, you know, a nice big piece of ABS plastic. Maybe a shower surround or something like that. Free materials, right? All right, swinging around. Let's see. I talked about this on the last video or so. There's the trail. That's one of the roads I've made for riding the bike on. Water manifold. That's actually been a good idea. Hasn't been well utilized yet, but the idea was between that and this concrete thing here and the water tank. So that's a 1,500 gallon tank. That's the truck tank, couple hundred gallons, and the IBC, which is another 275 gallon tank. What I would do when I was hauling water from town, I could back the truck into the driveway, hook up to the hydrant there, the concrete thing, and water would run out of the truck through the hose, through the hydrant, down through the manifold into one of the other water tanks. I didn't have to pump it. I had enough elevation that it would usually just run. I could pump it if I needed to. But so the idea was I built this manifold that was 2-inch PVC pipe that's buried that has runners going to each of the tanks and valves. So these extra ones here on this side, there's 3, and you can also see some valve boxes down here. That's for future tanks. So all I have to do is get a new tank. The piping is already there. It's already got a valve on it. I just hook up a tank to it, fill it up with water, and now I've got instant storage that is running to the house, to my water pump, and it's just part of the system. And I can close a valve and isolate a tank if I need to. So that worked out pretty well. The white thing, that's the old camper shell. I put that over the truck tank just to protect it from the sun. And that's also where the bees are now. The bees got a watering dish. Yeah. This over here, the rocks, that was the garden. I don't know that I'm going to do it again next year. It really depends on if I think I've got enough water. That was the biggest problem this year is I kept, every time I watered, I'd be looking at it, I'm like, oh, I'm wasting water, you know. Yeah, it was nice to have, you know, some fresh lettuce and carrots and stuff like that, but it was a lot of water just for lettuce. And I'm like, I can't really afford the water right now. So I probably won't unless we just have massive rain. You know, if all my tanks are full, yeah, I might do it again. Maybe a smaller scale, maybe just do 2 beds instead of, it was 5 or 6, I think. So I've still got seeds left over. So if I can do a smaller scale, maybe I will. Solar. Okay. Once again, thank you to Houston Firefox. Generously donating all the solar panels, or a lot of them. So the littlest ones, well, since I got the wireless mic. So Houston Firefox donated this row. And then this row back here. And then there's a few over there that are the old panels, and then this whole row is the Harbor Freight panels. Okay, so, yeah, I'm getting wind, sorry. The Harbor Freight panels are still working. As far as I know, they're all working. I might, you know, it's like I haven't unconnected or disconnected each individual panel to see, but the chain is still putting out power. They're all wired in parallel. And it was one of those things where mixing panels is not ideal, and also mixing batteries is not ideal, but you do what you can. The ones that Houston Firefox donated are awesome. They put out a lot of power. However, they don't put out so much power that I can take the other ones offline. So by keeping them all working together, it's better than just one set by itself. You know, so if I just took the big ones in the front and eliminated everything else, that would be better in a way, but it wouldn't be as much power as I have now. So, yeah, right? But they're awesome. You know, it's like every day you wake up, it's like, oh, it's sunny, I got power, you know. I'm also in the process, part of the turtle project is I'm building lithium battery packs. I bought surplus batteries and I'm taking them out of the cases they came in and spot welding them together. That's one of the turtle videos if you're interested in that. But as I get the batteries built for the bicycle project, I can also use them with my solar batteries out here. And that'll just give me more run time into the evening. So it's kind of a win-win there. You know, by building the systems, thinking about the other side, I can use, for instance, I only go to town maybe once a week or twice, 3 times a month. Those batteries for the bicycle would just be sitting there, right? Well, why not connect them to the main system? So that's the direction I'm going. So I could ride to town, use the power. By the next day, those batteries would be recharged, and then I got the rest of the week with a few more amp hours. Okay, I've been talking about what the sun does to things like plastic. Those valves at the bottom, they used to be white. They're completely turning brown. The PVC pipe itself is doing better, but not perfect, right? The black coil was part of my water heater collector system. I think the theory was good. I just didn't put enough time into really developing it. So all of this is cut off now. I'm going to eventually take the rest of it apart. I just haven't done it yet. Something I realized, if I did take it all apart, where would I put it? It would be in the way. So out here, I'll just leave it for a while. Eventually, I should take it apart because the sun is going to screw it up. And I've got a bunch of really nice 1-inch and 2-inch valves just sitting here, but they're all glued together. So I got to think of a project that I could use them for and then cut them apart so that I could reuse them. You know, if you cut far enough away from the valve on the pipe, then you can splice it, kind of thing. The valves are expensive. Anyway, for the summer, I just took one of the coils, laid it on the ground, and ran that as my water heater, and that worked fine. Even up until end of October, I still had enough sun to heat it. It was working well. Then it froze, so I'm like, yeah, it's probably time to roll that one up. So now I'm back to using the electric water heater for showers. And that's, whoa, really getting windy now. And now that I've got enough solar, I can easily use solar power to heat water for showers. If I need to, I can still run the generator. So this would be one of the systems that probably would work, but because I didn't put enough time into it, it's not really living up to its expectations. All right, that's the back of the shop. Eventually there would be a door there. I just never got to finishing that. Part of the shop is still open because I had the wood. I just didn't put it on the side facing the bus. I think I wanted to let the light in, but that lets a lot of dust blow in, and birds and mice. And the bus itself, I don't know, what can you say about it? I'm glad I kept the bus. A lot of people have asked if I was going to sell it. It's like, well, it's 8 feet by 25 feet inside of usable space. Why get rid of that, right? And it's got lots of windows. So as I get time, I do want to go through and do more of a bus conversion, insulate it, maybe fix the front door or replace the front door, make it usable space again instead of just storage. It's actually really nice to be in the bus. It's brighter, so why not, right? The house, yeah. Honestly, it's kind of weird. You know, there's days where I look at it. If I would have taken the money I spent building the house and bought like a really nice van, used van, did a conversion on the van, and then lived in the van instead of building the house, then I could take the van traveling. That's something I've considered a lot lately. You know, if I wouldn't have built the house, I had a pretty good pile of money when I did it. So, but you know, I got it now. I'm enjoying it. It's working out well. So, I can't sell the house and go buy a van, but yeah. Oh, also in the shot. That's the antenna for the Wii Boost. That's one of those things that has worked really well. So, and yeah, thanks to Houston Firefox for that also. All right, I'm getting blown away, so I'm going to go inside. All right. The shop. This is the tinker shop. This is the back half of the house. A couple of years before I built the house, I really was trying to get myself to a point where I could build a little workshop. And it was hard to justify when I really should have been building the house. So when I got ready to build the house, I thought, well, I don't need that much living space to live in. What I need is workspace and storage space. So when I built the house, it was what, 30 feet long? I don't remember. I don't do math anymore if I can help it. But the front of the house is 16 feet. The shop that we're looking at now is 12 feet. I could probably add that up. And then storage is 8 feet. I'm standing in storage now. Okay, and it's 12 feet wide. So this little shop here is 12 feet by 12 feet. Okay. Not well organized yet. It's kind of like the shop outside. It's got a lot of potential, but I haven't had time to really spend getting it set up the way I would like it. But it's close. I can use parts of it, and it's just as I get projects done, I use up some of the stuff that I've got. Like, for instance, the turtle project, I'm using up a lot of the stuff that was sitting in here. So that's working out pretty good. It actually looks okay on camera. I don't have all the lights turned on, but lots and lots of stuff. And then a table in the middle and workbenches on both sides. For now, the whole house, my ceiling is still open. I haven't insulated the roof yet, but the walls are insulated. Building this really made the bus look better, and also having the shop outside, right? Because when I first came out here, all I had was the bus, and the bus was so full of everything, right? Most of this was in the bus. Yeah, it was just chaos. So by spreading things out, now I can kind of find things. So that helps a little bit. And then I built storage. Oops, I'll turn the light on here. Same thing. I just built these shelves. They were built for the totes. So I've got stuff in totes that I've had since I lived in Austin. A lot of computer parts and a lot of, again, tinkering stuff, electronic stuff, stepper motors, servos, that kind of stuff. So, and then on the opposite side, the shower. Not finished, but it works. And that's running off of an electric water heater now. So, yeah. Back to the house. I talked about things that work. Let me also turn some lights off here. In case you didn't see the other video, I did something about temporary off-gridding, like for people that, you know, say if hurricane season, your power was off for, you know, a year or something like that, or a month or whatever. Let me back up on that. Okay, things that worked. All right, deep freeze. That has been one of the best things ever. It's either a 5 or a 7 cubic foot. Got it at Walmart. I don't know, 150 bucks maybe, something like that. At first, I didn't have enough power to run it unless I ran the generator, but eventually the solar and the batteries caught up to it. In the summer, I can run that for 2 or 3 hours and then stop it. It's hooked up to a timer. And then afternoon, run it for another 2 or 3 hours. And then it stays cold enough to keep my drinks cold. And I can buy like a dozen eggs and typically use them up before they go bad. Okay. So I don't use it as a freezer so much as a fridge. Now, there is kits that you can use to turn a freezer into a fridge, which are actually pretty good. However, what I found, this works out really good for me because in the sunny part of the day, like peak solar, I can run this for a few hours and then shut it off. The insulation of a deep freeze keeps it cold the rest of the day. If you ran a fridge, the fridge would stay at 40 degrees and you'd have to run it 24/7. So for me, this worked better. I can let this thing get completely frozen, shut it off, and by the next day it's still cold inside. Maybe not ice cold, but cold, right? Enough to where you don't die of food poisoning. And that's, you know, for me, that's really all I care about. Propane. I got one tank there, and that I brought it in that couple days where it got really cold. I was running the heater off of that. I've got, oh, this is something worth showing. I don't remember exactly what this is called, but you can kind of figure it out. It's a Y adapter. This end connects to the tank, and then it's got 2 full-size fittings on it, so you can hook up 2 different things to the same tank. Okay. And then on my stove, I just leave it there so I don't lose it again. Couldn't find it when I needed it. On the stove and also on my heaters, I've got a hose adapter kit that lets you run a heater that would normally run on a 1-pound canister. The hose adapter lets you hook up that heater to a full-size tank. So with that Y adapter, I can have one tank running my propane stove and also my propane heater. That just makes it easier instead of, needing two tanks at the same time. So I guess we can start on one end or the other. So under that side, next to the full trash can, there's the other, that's the actual tank that's in use right now. Now today is the 14th of November, and I opened this tank on the 13th of April. Because I have electricity with solar, I don't need propane very often. I also don't do a lot of cooking, so that tank is lasting a long time. Okay. Wintertime, I can blow through a tank in probably a month or so when it actually gets cold. Here we are, middle of November. I'm wearing shorts still. Right? Nobody wants to see that, right? But it's beautiful. I mean, it's 68 degrees in here right now. This is one of the thermometers I bought for the deep freeze. So I just have one sitting out here so I can kind of keep an eye on how cold it is or how warm it is. With the wind, I got the windows closed right now. So, but yeah, I mean, and I talked about this before on the other videos, but if a person was just starting out and they didn't know where to, to spend your money, and I guess I look at this different because I'm always down to my last dollar, and I got to remember that some people that come out here actually have money. Maybe they just sold their house and they can afford to do it the right way. Okay. But for the rest of us, if you're just starting out, I would say buy a generator. I didn't show you the generator this time, but it was out there next to the batteries with the solar panels. Buy yourself a generator. Just get a cheap one, couple of $300, Harbor Freight, Northern Tools, something like that. If you got the money, yeah, go buy a Honda. They're beautiful. They work really well. They're quiet, they're well made, they'll last a long time. But if you can't afford that, go buy the cheap one. It'll last you for a while, and then you just replace it. You can probably get 3 of the cheap ones before you get up to the cost of the new one, the big one. Okay. So get you a generator. Then you can run a few of your things that you think you need. And if you don't, like for instance, if you're not sure this is going to be your thing, maybe don't go with solar and batteries and charge controllers and all of that right away. Just get a generator, run it for a couple hours a day, then shut it off and enjoy the peace and quiet. Okay. For cooking, a propane stove, you can't beat it. That 15-pound tank cost me about $45 to buy the first time. It's a tank exchange. When it's empty, I trade it. It's about $15. I just give the guy the empty one. He gives me the full one. Off we go. They fill it after. I don't have to sit there and wait for them to fill it. We just trade. So you buy it once for $45 and then you trade it for $15. Walmart is a little bit less than that even. Okay. Propane for $45. I got 6 months out of that tank. Right? 7 months. In the summer? Yeah. Wintertime, it's not going to last as long. But it's cheap, relatively. Okay. The amount of energy stored in propane, if you had to use electricity to do that, it would cost you a fortune in solar panels to do what that little $45 tank can do. Okay. So if you can, run propane. But since I have so much sun out here and I like to tinker with things, then I started doing electrical. Solar panels, charge controllers, batteries, inverters to make power. Okay. So a lot of my stuff is electric. Right now I've got the crock pot going, cooking some beans. Yep, still working, nice and hot. I've got a little electric hot plate, electric coffee maker. I will keep track of things. So for instance, this one on the top, I wrote 650 watts. That's how much it uses, but it doesn't take very long to brew coffee. First thing in the morning, I probably don't have enough power to make coffee because I ran the computer too late last night. So When I do have power, like now, it's about 11 o'clock, I can brew coffee. I just did this before I started this video. Brew coffee, put it in the thermos, it'll be warm tomorrow. Now, if I want, I can heat it up on the propane stove if I don't have enough power. Or it doesn't take as much power to reheat coffee the next day. So 9 o'clock when I'm looking for my second cup, I'll dump cold coffee back into the coffee maker, turn it on, and it slowly heats it up, and then you're good again, right? Day old coffee, you know, I drink it. You don't have to. Things that work, the hot plate, just simple, right? If I do have enough power, like for instance, if I'm cooking beans, I'll probably cook a pot of rice, okay? I can do rice pretty good on the hot plate. And then a video I did a while ago, this guy over here, it's a variable speed fan controller. What that lets me do, it kind of lets me fine tune how much power the hot plate uses. The hot plate, when you first turn it on, it'll take 1,000 watts, no matter if it's on zero, I mean not zero, but if you turn it on 1 or 5, it'll still take 1,000 watts. Okay, it's not variable. The cheap ones, now if you go get like an induction heater, that's a completely different story. Those are awesome. I don't have one. So that'll sit there and pull 1,000 watts, and then when it gets up to the temperature setting for 1, then it'll click off and it uses 0 watts. And it'll sit there for a while, and then it'll take 1,000 watts and then shut off again. Okay. If I just want to heat up water, like for instance now it's kind of cold, the water coming out of the tap is kind of cold. If I want to wash my hands, I just want to warm up the water so it doesn't hurt, right? So what I can do, I can turn the variable controller down a ways. Instead of it taking 1,000 watts, maybe it'll only take 500 watts. My solar and my batteries have an easier time keeping up with that. Maybe they couldn't handle 1,000 watts, but they can handle 500 watts. That's kind of what that does. Okay. Now it'll still take longer to heat up, and that's fine. At least it works. Okay. Crockpot. That is one of the best things ever out here. I think it pulls like 100 watts, right? So that's like 4 of the little panels outside. Okay. So if I want to cook some beans, throw it in there in the morning, let it run all day. By supper time, I've got beans cooked. Anything more than that, I don't care. You know, it's easy, right? And it doesn't use that much power. So I can do it. Okay. If you're in an RV, this would probably be a good solution. You know, you can sit there and have beans cooking while you're out hiking, come back and your beans would be cooked if you had solar. It doesn't make sense to run a generator for 8 hours to cook $1 worth of beans. That's one of those things you got to think about. You can go buy beans, doesn't use any electricity, eat them out of the can if you don't mind eating them cold. This makes a lot more sense, right? So I buy a lot of beans too, and chili and soup and stuff like that. What else? Microwave. I do not use very often anymore. Makes a nice clock though. That's been one of those things that it's just been in the last year or so. When I first came out here, I didn't have enough batteries. I did have the inverter, but I didn't have enough solar to really make it worth anything. So I would turn on the inverter, use the batteries to cook, maybe make a pot of coffee, and then shut it all off again, right? So I never used the microwave, and I definitely didn't bother setting the clock, which is weird because I'm the guy that I will set every clock. You know, I need to know what time it is. So it really bugged me not to set the clock, right? But if you turn the power off in between uses, it didn't make sense. So I got used to it. Well, finally now I can set the clock and it'll go for a week or two, and then eventually I'll forget, run something too long, knock the inverter offline because the batteries can't keep up, come back in, yep, I got to redo the clock. Okay, not a big deal. Honestly, I don't use the microwave very much. Once in a while, in the middle of the day, if I want another cup of coffee, I can warm up a cup. But it makes more sense to use the propane or the hot plate, or just put coffee back in the coffee maker. Because I don't have really good refrigeration, I don't buy things like frozen burritos very often anymore. That used to be what I lived on. But it doesn't make sense to have 30 frozen burritos in a freezer if you're not running the freezer. So after you throw things away a few times, you just quit buying them. So yeah, anyway. Computers. This has been one of those fun things lately. Now, again, that I've got enough power, if I can set this up where I'm not shooting too much of the window. I've got enough power in the daytime. I can run any or all, well, not at the same time, but I can run my biggest workstation computer that I used to use for editing all the videos. And when I came out here, I just didn't have enough power to run it. Finally, now with all of the new solar panels, I do have enough power to run it. So that's been game changing. If you're into software, you find your favorite program, and it's really hard when you can't use it anymore, right? So finally now I can go back to the big computer that has the best software that I have, and I can actually do things the way I like to do them again. So some of the more recent videos I've finally been able to edit that way. The other end of the spectrum, though, is, that guy's in the shot, my little Raspberry Pi. I've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 of those. That's pretty funny when you think about it. It's like, how many do I have? I'm not sure. I think I do have 4. So that's the official Raspberry Pi touchscreen model, although it's in a third-party case, I guess. So in the mornings and the evenings when I don't have the sun shining yet, I can use that for hours and still have power the next day. And then when I do have power, I can run a bigger computer and use the 24-inch monitors, which are just nicer. You can see what you're doing a little bit better. So by having different choices, I can kind of fine tune. It's like, okay, first thing in the morning, I've got 11.3 volts on the battery. If I turned on a full-size computer, that would last about 12 minutes, and then I'd be in the dark again. Okay, so don't do that. But if I use the Raspberry Pi, I can still do the same kinds of things, writing, that kind of thing, on the littler screen. It uses less power. I've got one of these on a big, you can run a full-size screen off the Raspberry Pi. So I've got that in the bus now. So what I'm working towards, I haven't really done it much yet. But in the morning, I'm thinking I'll grab my cup of coffee, my oatmeal, I'll go over to the bus, eat my breakfast there, watch the sunrise, right? That's just nice, because I'm sitting in front of the windshield instead of here in the dark. Okay, so take advantage of that. So laptops work really well if you're off grid. I've got several laptops, and I've talked about this before. In my world, I can't seem to find one perfect computer that does everything I need. The biggest computer I have is, oh my God, wonderful. I can run 2 computer monitors with it. I can do lots of stuff, but it uses, say, 350 watts when I'm using it. Okay. The Raspberry Pi, I think, uses about 7 watts. That makes a difference, right? And I'm doing a mix of Linux and Chrome operating system and I think I've got one, the big computer is still running Windows 10. I cringe every time I look at it. It's just like, I don't know. I used to be a Windows guy, but then you started using Linux and you're like, oh, I can do the same thing for free. Why would I pay money for this thing that doesn't work as well half the time? So anyway, so all the Raspberry Pis are running a version of Linux. Yeah. Couple last little things here. Talked a little bit about the Wii Boost. It's turned off right now. Typically, I don't leave this turned on unless I'm actually doing something. But this guy up here is a cell phone booster. I don't get good enough reception to make it worth using my phone out here without the booster. Like, and the first couple of years I lived out here, I just decided I didn't have internet out here, and I just forgot about it. So, but I was working then, and so every day I went into town, then I'd have internet on my phone, and I would do what I had to do then, or I could stop at the library, you know, after work or before work or something, and use their Wi-Fi. So when I decided to quit my job and stay out here full time, then it became more of a problem because, well, you're not going to jump on your bicycle and ride 15 miles just to get your cell phone to work. So I was looking at some options, saw how much these cost, and decided, well, it wasn't really worth it for me at the time. And one of the viewers, again, Houston Firefox, donated me the WeBoost. I'm like, this is game changing. Now, in the beginning, there was some growing pains. A lot of it depends on your situation, where you're at. This thing was the biggest pain in the butt in the beginning to get it to work because I couldn't figure out which cell phone tower it was trying to hit. And without good internet, I couldn't get the map to load that showed me where the tower was supposed to be. I was aimed at one direction that seemed to work sometimes, but then it would just randomly stop working. It probably took a month to get everything dialed into the point, but now it works really well. And then another part of the system that I picked up, and I'm not going to talk very much about specifics as far as what brand or anything. I used to work in IT. I've sold and serviced computers and worked on network systems and big servers, and I also worked for an internet company for a while, so some of this stuff makes a lot of sense to me, maybe wouldn't to everybody else. This box, which is also turned off at the moment, this one is made by Netgear. There is other versions. It's a LTE/3G/4G router. It has a SIM card in it the same as a cell phone. So through my provider, I use Google Fi. Google Fi, which I'm not going to endorse or whatever. Google Fi can use both LTE or 3G or 4G or now 5G, depending on what's available. They have contracts with several other carriers. Okay, so it's one of those third-party kind of things. Anyway, so I go on the website, beep, beep, beep. They send me a data-only SIM card. So, it doesn't need voice. It just is a data. It's like if you had your tablet, you can get a data card for that. Same thing. So this thing takes cell phone signal and turns it into networking Ethernet signal. So it's got a network card or a port on the back. So from that, I go to here, which is my Wi-Fi router, and then wired or wireless to all the computers. So this one is wired. This one is wired. My phones have wireless. I've got one in the bus that's running wireless right now. So as long as this is turned on, everything has internet at the same time instead of one device, right? And you can do the same sort of thing with your phone. You can turn on your internet connection sharing. There's a few different names for it. However, that doesn't work with wired, and half of my computers don't have Wi-Fi because a full-size computer typically doesn't have Wi-Fi. Your laptops have Wi-Fi. Okay, so I don't know, 150 bucks I think for this, but this can use the boosted signal from the WeBoost. This is the inside antenna. So the WeBoost grabs the cell phone signal from that antenna on the back of the house, comes in, broadcasts it through everything in here, so then the cell phone would work, and the router works. And from there, I can get internet to all of my computers at the same time. I can turn them on, and they can all do their updates at the same time, and it comes through the cell phone signal. That's pretty cool. Honestly, the fact that it works at all is amazing, and it actually works really well. It's not as fast as if you had, fiber internet or your cable or your DSL modem. But the fact that it works over a cell phone signal, I'm pretty happy with it. This will show me between 3 and 4 bars typically, which I'm 15 miles from town and I'm surrounded by hills. So honestly, I'm just ecstatic every time I turn it on and it works. So yeah, I don't know. It just kind of gives you an overview of where things are, what works, what doesn't. Things that I do, you won't do, right? I mean, honestly. But everybody's got their own way of doing stuff. So anyway, that's kind of a little glimpse into my world out here, I guess. And I would say if you're just getting started, you know, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to move off grid. You know, maybe you saw the sign on the freeway. Ooh, I can get 20 acres of land for $20,000. No money down. I'll do that. Okay, great. Go buy yourself a little RV or a bus if you want to go that way. Plunk yourself down, get yourself some propane appliances, get yourself a generator. If you want to get solar, great. It's a little more work, but it works really well. So I forgot I had a script. That would have made it shorter. Anyway, yeah, the whole idea of the video, I just was thinking, it's like, all right, when I started, I hadn't really researched like, oh my God, let me go watch every YouTube video out there about living off grid. All right. I know they're out there. Honestly, I get a lot of comments sometimes. Somebody will be like, oh, have you seen this guy's video? Have you seen this guy's video? It's like, I don't actually spend a lot of time watching other people's YouTube videos about living off grid. I don't know, that seems weird. So I didn't really do a lot of research. But when I started off, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hit the ground. And what happened was I had about a week. I brought the bus out here, left it on the property, rode the motorcycle back to Austin, about 500 miles, something like that. That was brutal. Did that in one day. It's a long time on a motorcycle. And then while I had time, I would bring a truckload of stuff out here and go back. I was looking to get a transfer to work. I was working for the Postal Service then. So I was trying to get a transfer to El Paso. But I bought the property before, like a year or two before I moved out here. Came out camping a couple times. That's actually a good idea too. Just come out and just be on the property. But I literally had about a week notice of, yes, you've got the job, be out here on Monday. So I had already brought the bus out ahead of time, knowing that was probably going to be the case. When it happened, I wouldn't have any warning. They'd just be like, okay, go now, right? It took me a year to get the transfer, and then they give me a week of notice, you know. So, and you had a choice, take it or leave it. And if you don't take it, you get put on the bottom of the list. So you may never get another chance. So you got to take it. So when I first hit the ground here, I had the bus here, I had my truck, I had my motorcycle, and I had about 4 truckloads of stuff from Austin, my apartment, jammed into the bus. It was just like I had little tunnels practically to get to stuff, and I had no idea where anything was. It was just chaos. A few times on my days off, I would take all the totes that you saw, and I'd lay them out in the sand, and I'd try to find things that I needed, and then I'd pull those out, and then put the totes back in, and then stack the totes floor to ceiling down one side of the bus. And that's how I lived for the first year. And then eventually you kind of get things figured out a little bit and move things around. I didn't want to put things in storage because you never get back to it and you end up paying for the stuff for years. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'll build a little storage thing. So that's one of the reasons I built the shop. But that was 2 years later, not really. But I think the reason for this video, all the things that worked and all the things that didn't work, and time. Every single thing I've done has taken longer by far than I ever thought it would take. Actually building the house itself went pretty quickly, but It still felt like it took a long time. There are things that I really thought I was going to do in the first 6 months that 3 years later I haven't done yet. And I may not do them, right? Which is kind of weird, but the bus conversion project, I couldn't do a bus conversion. I lived in the bus as it was. I took the seats out, threw them on the ground, put all my stuff in there, and that was my bus conversion, right? So I didn't get to do insulation on the walls. I didn't get to do all the cool little cutouts where you make things fit in a bus or build shelves. I've got white, I don't have any in here. I've got those white plastic shelves sitting in there, you know, that you buy at the dollar store kind of thing or wherever. Yeah, so I didn't get to do any of that. You know, I just had to live in it because I had enough time to get here, get ready, go to work. And then after that, I was exhausted for the next year and a half because I was driving back and forth. I was half the time living in the truck because I couldn't afford the gas to drive back and forth. You know, so everything out here just kind of stayed. But in talking to my neighbors, they say a lot of the same things. You come out here, you've got these romantic fantasies of all the things you're going to do. You probably won't do most of them. Now, maybe you will, you know, but things will change. And so I would say if you are going to come out here, you know, or wherever, you can homestead anywhere, you know, start small. If you can do it before you move out. One example, I used to work for an RV dealer. Most people will go buy and finance their dream RV, motorhome, trailer, truck camper, and then it will sit in storage 51 weeks of the year, and they will pay to put it in storage because their homeowners association won't let them park their motorhome in front of their house. Or if you live in an apartment, yeah, you can't do that, right? So you'll go out and you'll buy this thing and then you put it in storage, or you'll bring it out here and leave it and then go back, and then it'll sit out here in the sun, and people will break the windows or whatever. You don't really know, right? Well, what I was thinking is if you rented an RV, you can rent, I'm going to say $350 a day. That seems like a lot of money, and that might not be accurate anymore, but it's close. Look on, I don't know, just Google motorhome rentals. Okay. Instead of paying for storage on the thing, rent one for a few days, drive it out here, live on your property for a few days, drive it home, turn it in. Now it's not your problem anymore. That makes a lot more sense to me, right? Or go buy something cheap and that you don't care about too much. You know, if you buy something new, it's going to, you know, the wind and the sun and everything will tear it up, and the mice will crawl in and chew through all the wires. All right. That'll happen to new or used. I mean, I had mice and rats in my pickup chewing through stuff. That happens a lot out here. So the bus, I couldn't run it anymore now. Well, I've done stuff to it too, but there's about this much of the radiator hose missing that the rats and the mice have chewed, completely chewed the hose, gone. So they could stick their heads in there and drink the antifreeze. Yeah, I'm going to have some stupid mice running around here if they haven't died already. But yeah, that stuff will kill you. But it tastes sweet. And they're like, man, they were just all, they didn't just chew a little hole. They chewed the whole 2-inch hose gone. You know, so that's something to think about. Just, you know, if you can, start small, start simple. One of my friends, David, out here, he's one of the Patreons. He started off, just built a little shack, you know, and then he built a bigger shack, you know. But yeah, it's like, why, you know, don't get all crazy right away. You know, it's like, because I used to work for the Postal Service, I would see these things. You would get a lot of people come in, be all excited to live here. You had to set up a PO box in town. Then you could take your PO box and go get a water account so that you could go haul your own water. But before you did that even, you had to go talk to the courthouse. They would register where you were going to live for your 911 address. So you needed the 911 address first for your physical property. Then you take that and get the PO box. Then you take that, get your water account. Okay. So most people here will have to have a PO box to get their water account. Okay. Because I worked at this post office here, the one that's 15 miles from me. I worked there a few times, not permanently. You would see regularly, one, their box was completely jammed because they hadn't come back for so long to check their mail, which could have been because the road washed out and they just couldn't get there for the next month. That happens. Or they'd come in all excited, and then about 3-4 weeks later, they'd come back. Yeah, we want to forward our mail. We're going back home or somewhere else because the life out here, it's not easy sometimes. Me personally, I like it, but it's not for everybody. So my point would be, if you can live on the property relatively inexpensively for a month, if you could take 2 weeks or a month of vacation from work, come out, live on the property, see what it's like, and maybe do that 2 or 3 different times of the year. So it's not just always in the summer. I've talked to people that, like Houston Firefox again. I'm just seeing something running by. Roadrunner outside. We'll never get a shot of him. Houston Firefox, the whole week he was out here just recently, the wind didn't blow the whole week he was here. He doesn't believe me what the wind is like. It's so windy outside now you couldn't hear me on the microphone kind of thing. So, yeah. The first time I came out here, the wind was blowing so hard I was afraid to set up my tent. I slept in the back of the truck for 2 days. Couldn't get the tent set up. It was going to blow away. Yeah. Anyway. Things that worked, things that didn't work yet. Some of them might still work. I might come back to some ideas. And things I learned so far. Yeah. It'll take longer. It'll cost more money. Things you were pretty sure would work won't work. The last thing, and I get this comment a lot, why didn't you do it this way? Why didn't you do it this way? Right? And my normal answer is, you do what you can with what you got. Right? There's a sliding scale, and you'll see this in business and in life. If you've got cash, you can go buy something and be done, right? This house, I could have paid somebody to build it. This is actually a house. It's not a storage shed, although it looks about like one. A lot of my neighbors live in storage sheds. The nice ones, the big ones. They look like houses, but they were actually they were hauled out here and just put down on the ground. Could have done that, right? Honestly, for what I'm doing, I probably would have been just as well to do that, honestly. But I took the time, I built it myself. Okay. If the road, I haven't talked much about that. There was a recent video I showed, probably haven't showed that one yet. I've shot video of making the little road. So if I made a bicycle trail that goes out along the fence to make it easier for me to get from where I am to the county road instead of going the long way. I made a shortcut. Okay. I built it with a shovel and a pickaxe and a rake. Most of the bushes here are small enough you can just dig them a little bit, pop them out. It's not fast going, but my driveway, all of this, I did that way. By doing it that way, I can decide, instead of making a straight driveway, if you came in, you could just get a front end loader or, a grader or whatever, just plow, make a straight line, right? Knock everything down, right? Well, that's what my neighbors are doing. And every time the wind blows, they've broken so much of the soil, you just see this massive cloud blowing past all the time, right? So after living like that for a while, I'm looking at it, I'm like, if I can take out one bush where I need to and leave the rest of the soil alone, I don't have near the dust problem that a lot of my neighbors have. So you just kind of figure it out. But I didn't do that on purpose. I did that because I didn't want to pay somebody to come out with the equipment to make me a road. So I just figured out if I could drive between the bigger bushes. So when I brought the bus out, I literally walked it a few times. Okay, turn left when you get to the big tree, turn right beside the cactus, turn left. Boom, okay. I just drove over bushes to get the bus in, and I knew I was never going to go anywhere again. So that's why the front tire on the bus is flat. But it got me here. I was like, I don't care, you know. So somewhere between, you know, the county road and where the bus was parked, I got a flat tire, right? Hit a cactus or something like that. Okay, but I didn't need to worry about it. What I did have to worry about, though, is my pickup. When I first started bringing loads out here, I had a stick from one of the bushes go right through the sidewall. Oops. Well, I always get flat tires, so I had a couple extra spares. So, yeah. Things will cost you more than you expect. You don't think about that kind of stuff. You know, you don't get sticks going through your tires in town, usually. Yeah. Anyway, if you think you want to do stuff like this, you're going to need like a lot of tenacity. You're just going to need that thing that says you're not going to quit. You're going to need a lot of patience to just say, you know what, this thing that I want to do, it's not going to get done this week. It's going to take a while. It helps if you're a little bit handy with being able to do things. And that comes back to, again, trading dollars for whatever you need. If you had to pay an electrician to come out and wire your house, that's going to cost you a lot more money. But it'll probably be right. If you want solar panels, it's helpful if you understand how things work or take the time to learn how things work. Being able to make your own wiring harnesses is really helpful. That kind of thing. It would be good if you knew a little bit about fixing things, you know, just because if you're out here, roadside assistance won't come out here. You should be able to change your own tires at least. You know, there's guys in town that'll fix your tires. So if you can at least put your spare on, get to town, they'll fix your tire for you. But you got to be able to get there. Right. It's worth it. It's just a lot of trouble, a lot of work sometimes. Anyway, that's what I've learned. Your experience will be different. Anyway, thanks for watching. As always, thanks to all the people that are supporting me on Patreon and PayPal and everything. Especially recently, I just had a bunch of people send me some money. Much appreciated. I think most of them were anonymous, so I'm not going to rattle off names, but I had like a few $100s come in. I was pretty shocked. And this was after I already said, hey, stop. We got enough. But so thank you. That's, it's humbling. It's very, I didn't come out here expecting people to send me money. That wasn't the plan, honestly, but thank you. Hopefully it's worth it. You know, if I'm providing some information and maybe some entertainment kind of thing. Alrighty, well, that's it for now, I guess. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Oh, and aside from my mom, I'm going to put a link up here on the screen while I'm thinking of it. The book, Mars Clipper. Where's my props? We'll do this one. Yeah, that'll work. free preview of the prequel of Mars Clipper available online for free. You have to read it off the website for now until I figure out how to get it on something else. But if you're interested in science fiction and what it would be like to get, take a guy off the street and send him on a spaceship, is basically how the story is. If you're into that kind of thing, check it out. It's free. I'm looking for feedback. If you get a chance to read it, if you just absolutely hate it, tell me you hate it. Fine. Not everybody's cup of tea, right? But anyway, it's free. Check it out. If you see any mistakes, there's a link on the page that's, click to send me an email and tell me if there's a problem. I'll try to go back and fix it. Cool. Eventually, if a lot of people are interested, that prequel will end up becoming a book. If not, I'll just leave that one for free. I'm writing what comes after that now, and that will become the book. So there's also going to be a channel, Mars Clipper, that'll be down in the description also. A separate channel from this channel that'll be just about the other project, and the book, it's called Mars Clipper. So look for Mars Clipper links. Cool. Alrighty, that's it for now. And again, thanks for watching.